All right, so let's persist this thing. So the first thing that we need to do is I'm going to get this persisting into local storage using react.useEffect. So we're going to say react use effect. And anytime my component renders, this function is going to get called. And my component can re-render because the name updated. So I'm going to say window local storage set item, and we'll set it as a name. And then we'll say name is the value that we want to set into local storage. Cool, so if I save this and then come in here, you'll notice that name gets added to local storage. You also know we have this color mode in local storage, and that actually is for the app. If you change this to light, then you'll see that the color mode is light. So that's what that's all about. But here we have the name in local storage. It is set to an empty string as a value, and that's because our useEffect callback is called for every update of our component and for the initial render. So this greeting was rendered, our useEffect was called, and we set the item name to that empty string name, which our state was initialized to. So now, as we go ahead and type, if I type Kent, then we're going to get that value updated with every keystroke of my keyboard. So that's great, but if I refresh, I'm not going to get that updated, and in fact, my name is now removed from local storage. So why is that happening? Well, what's happening here is we're saying our initial name is equal to an empty string. We're going to set our useState initial value to that empty string. Now this name is an empty string. We finish rendering, and then our useEffect callback is called. And yeah, that name is an empty string. So we're overriding that value. So the second half of this is we need to pull that initial value from local storage when we initialize our useState call here. And so that's what Marty the Money Bag is doing for us right here, is it's saying, hey, let's grab that initial value and we'll put it right here. So we'll say, hey, local storage, get me the name item out of you. And if there is no name, then we'll just go with whatever the initial name was. So if somebody's loading this application for the first time, for example. So if we save that, we'll refresh, we have nothing in there, then we type Kent, and then we've got something in there, we refresh, and oh no, it's not in there. And that is because it looks like somebody removed the value here. So let's go ahead and we'll add that back here. And sweet, now we're getting that initialized properly. Everything's working stupendously. So I can make other changes here. I could say Adam, refresh, and there's Adam, and it's persisted for the lifetime of this local storage value. So in review, what we did here was we had a side effect that we wanted to run to synchronize the state of the world, specifically local storage, with the state of our application, specifically the name value. And so every time our component re-renders, this callback will get called to do that synchronization. And then as our component is initialized, we need to get that initial value out of local storage. And so we do so with the local storage get item API. And if there is no item by the key name, then we'll just default to the initial name. And the benefit of that is now I can say initial name is George. We'll save this. We're going to get Adam because Adam was in local storage. But if I clear local storage and then refresh, we'll get our initial value of George, and that gets saved into local storage. So all of this wired together is working as we would expect.